Complete Unknown is a really great film. I will say I'm technically not the target audience for this with regards to the subject matter, so take everything I'm saying with a pinch of salt. But that being said as well, it does have 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb across 90,000 reviews and ratings, as well as a Metascore of 70. So I enjoyed it. It seems to be well received. Regardless of your perspective, it does seem like it's a film that's going to work really well. This was released in 2024. It's directed by James Mangold, written by Mangold and Jay Cox, based on Dylan Goes Electric by Elijah Wald. And we have a cast including Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan. We also have Edward Norton, Elle Fanning. Great cast, great performances. The reason why it technically isn't for me is because, first of all, I just don't care about music in general. I have a few artists I listen to, but I could tell you nothing about music from the last, 10, 15 years maybe. And also, specifically, I don't know a lot about Bob Dylan. I don't dislike Bob Dylan, but I would never have considered myself to be a fan of Bob Dylan. I could name very few, if any, Bob Dylan films. So that's why I said take everything I'm saying with a pinch of salt, even though I am praising it. But at the same time, it seems to be well received. And it's a biographical film about Bob Dylan and the start of his career and things that happened during the early years of his career. And I have no idea how factually accurate it is. I cannot say it's accurate at all. But again, with what seems to be a good number of positive ratings, I'm going to assume that it is, for the most part, pretty accurate. And it took a little while for me to get into it, not in terms of enjoying it, but for me to follow what was happening. It took a little time for me to actually feel like I was following Bob Dylan's journey. But once we got there, it was a really pleasant experience. I really enjoyed getting to know him as a character. Obviously, I can't comment on how accurate Timothée Chalamet's performance is, but certainly I enjoyed his performance. I found the character he was playing to be really likeable, really easy to follow his journey, to want the best for him. And because, as I said, I know nothing about Bob Dylan's career, or I guess I knew nothing about his career, I didn't know what was going to happen in this. I had no expectations. I didn't know what his career was like, how it unfolded, how it began. And for me, that element of surprise worked really well, of not knowing what was around the corner. I think the narrative was really engaging. I think it had a lot to offer. We met a lot of other characters along the way. It taught me quite a bit. I learned who sang Whim Away and This Land Is Your Land, so I learned quite a bit as well, which I always really appreciate. And in general, I found it to be a really enjoyable experience. And of course, the music is really brilliant. There's a lot to listen to. And I say that as well, because I have seen other music-based biographies or biographical films, and often they don't have that much music in them. But this one, it definitely did, and I really liked that. So, honestly, I have absolutely no complaints about this at all. Sure, because I'm not a Bob Dylan fan, again, I don't dislike Bob Dylan, and because I'm not really that bothered about music, I'm praising it. But if you're a big music fan or a big Bob Dylan fan, you might have very different expectations for it. And in fact, I'm sure you will have different expectations, and that means that the bar might be a little higher for you than it was for me. So maybe you might not enjoy it as much as I did. On the flip side, you might love it even more than I did, because it might speak to you a lot more. I'm sure there are references in this that went completely over my head. So I do think that it's a film that it can appeal to pretty much anybody, which is brilliant. It's also an Oscar nominee. In fact, it's a multi-Oscar nominee. It was nominated for Best Sound, Best Picture, Best Directing, Best Performance by an Actor in a Lead Role, Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role, Actor in a Supporting Role, Adapted Screenplay, and Achievement in Costume Design. It didn't win any, but obviously that doesn't affect the quality of the film at all. Those were the 2025 Oscars, of course. And ultimately, I came away from it feeling like it was a really great experience. As I said, initially, it took me a little while to kind of start following it and to get to grips with the beginning of the narrative. But I'd say after maybe 15, 20 minutes, it was very easy to follow. So if you're going into this, like me, with no real knowledge, then I think you'll find it to still be a pleasant experience. It also felt like a pocket of time. This takes place initially at the beginning of the 60s. And while I'm by no means an expert on the 60s, I did feel like I'd been transported back in time, which is one of my favourite things about watching biographical dramas. I love that little snapshot of a certain time period. And this works really well in that regard. I have no complaints. There is nothing about this that did not work. I completely understand those Oscar nominations, which is not always the case when it comes to the Oscars. I think it's a really enjoyable experience. The music is great. The performances are great. The narrative works really well. Again, take it all with a pinch of salt because I'm not necessarily the target audience aside from being a film fan. I'd love to know what you think of this though. If you're coming from my perspective, if you're a big Bob Dylan fan, if you're a big music fan, I'd love to know whether it worked well for you. Personally, I can say that A Complete Unknown was a really enjoyable film. I definitely learned a lot. I'm sure I didn't absorb everything. As I said, I think there will be things that just went over my head, which is absolutely fine. I still got enough out of the film. I really enjoyed it, and needless to say, I'm very happy to recommend it.